Good evening. My name is Rick Eber. I'm the Vice Chair of the Northborough Appropriations Committee. Before we begin this evening's meeting, we have the statement to be read. This open meeting of the Appropriations Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12, 2020. Due to the current state of emergency in the Commonwealth, due to the outbreak of the COVID-19 virus. In order to mitigate the transmission of the COVID-19 virus, the town of Northborough has been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings, and as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. All members of the Appropriations Committee are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely, along with all staff and representatives of the Northborough added after last week. All the committee members and the staff at the meeting tonight. The order allows the Appropriations Committee to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded to the public, so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to the Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will not feature public comment. Now, when I call your name, members of our committee, please answer in the affirmative. George Brinkle.
Here.
Bob D'Amico. Bob D'Amico is absent. Janet Height.
Here.
Anthony Poteet.
Aye.
Myself, Richard Niebuhr, aye. Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. My town administrator, John Kadir.
Present.
And Scott Charpentier.
Not yet. Scott will be coming in on the solid waste. We have Jason Little, the finance director, here right now.
I'm sorry, Jason Little, yes.
Present.
And we will also have later on, they will be introduced as they appear, Kathy Jubert and John Campbell, we hope. So now it is past the hour of 7 o'clock. I will call this meeting of the Appropriations Committee to order. And the first item on our agenda, the approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes. The first one will be March 4th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
I move to approve the minutes of March 21.
Janice Height made a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second?
Second.
Anthony Petit seconded. All in favor? George?
Aye.
Janice?
Aye.
Tony?
Aye.
And myself, aye. So the motion to approve the minutes of 2021 passes unanimously. Now we have the minutes of March 11th.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, just for clarification, the motion, the minutes are from March 4th, 2021. So
I'm sorry,
just for the, we want to make sure the record
I
reflects.
had that backwards, all right.
Just want to make sure the record reflects the approval of the March 4th,
March 4th.
2021 minutes. Yep. And then
Now
you
we
have the
have-
March 11th minutes as well.
We have the coming up that our last set of minutes was from March 11th. So I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 11th.
I move that we approve the minutes of March 11.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Janice Height made a motion to approve the minutes and Tony Petit seconded the approval. All in favor, George,
Aye.
Janice,
Aye.
Tony,
Aye.
myself, aye. Motion has been made, seconded, and approved unanimously to approve the minutes of March 11th. So the next on our agenda is a review of the FY 2022 CPC budget requests and the economic development update. I guess we will turn this over to John to introduce our speaker, for the CPC.
Sure. So the two items on the agenda, you have Kathy Jubert here from who is the town planner, and you have John Campbell, who is joining us now. And they're going to go over, the first item is going to be the Community Preservation Committee articles. These are in the warrant, which you have as part of your packet. These are articles 23 through 28. And then Kathy Jubert has a brief economic development update for the committee as well. So with that, through the chair, I would hand it over to John Campbell to go through those articles.
Yes, John, if you please take over now. We'll be glad to hear your presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate your having me on. And hello to all the members of your committee and anyone listening. I thought I would start by going over the charts of the Community Preservation Fund budgeted revenue and the account balances, which are 2 handouts in your packet. And by means of that, to give a review of how the CPA works for Northborough. So if you were referred to the handout that's called budgeted revenue, it's dated December 10, 2020, and it shows a historical calculation and summary of the CPA revenue raised by Northborough and the state match from the years fiscal 2006 all the way up through fiscal 2021 and the estimate for next year. I want to bring your attention to the column called state match. And at the bottom of that column above the line, you see a number 18541. That was the state match that Northborough received for fiscal 2021 based on the 2021 actual revenues and the state match amount. It's the highest match we got in about 8 years, partly due, mostly due actually to the change in the state legislation, which increased the fund at the state level. And so all towns in the CPA received a higher match. This gave us a total for Northborough of 732, I believe it is, for the year. Now, for the current year, the CPA in Northborough will be spending for the fiscal 2022. We are estimating conservatively that the net tax levy will be $575,000. That's based on the 1.5% property tax surcharge, and that the state match will be conservatively 14%. There's every indication that the state match will be much higher, in fact, higher than last year. The revenue in the state account is trending higher than even in 2020. And so all indications are we're going to probably receive a match higher than last year. But for conservative purposes, we've used these numbers. And if you bring that number across to the bottom of the final column, you see a number 652,000. That is our estimated amount that we'll use for CPA in 2022. And it's an important number.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair, I'm not able to find.
Yeah, I'm not sure, John, that the financial packet went, or the financial report went to them. They have the memo regarding the projects.
Right, got the memo, but
Yeah.
not the backup material.
They received it under, or you received that memo, it just wasn't in your packet. That financial report you've received just as a matter of information distribution during the course of this budget cycle.
I apologize. I pulled this from the packet, and so I thought you were looking at it. Well, let me just summarize.
Yeah, I was going to say, John, both Johns, if you want me to share it, if anyone wants it up, I can do that, or.
Yeah, that would
I
be
think-
helpful. Why don't you do that, Kath?
Sure. While she's doing that, again, I'll just finish by saying that we come to the total of 652,000, and we use that as a guideline because, as a reminder, with the CPA, each year we must designate a minimum of 10% of new revenue toward the 3 core areas, that being affordable housing, that being historical preservation, and that being open space and recreation. And so 10% is 65,200. We use that as a guideline within the CPC to tell us that we must make sure we're allocating at least that amount toward each of those categories in the new revenue. Kathy, if you're able to scroll down, it will come to the fund balance section. So again, these charts are always hard for me to follow too, but again, it's a summary of, I think, the last 5 fiscal years and it shows the account balances. And you'll notice that there are very low amounts in the three core accounts: open space, affordable housing, and historical resource. That is because we're typically allocating money from them each year. And what we don't allocate, we put into the unreserved fund balance. That's the final column. And you'll notice that's a higher number in our reserve. And the committee's adopted that policy because the unreserved fund balance allows the committee to move it into any need in any of the three core categories, as well as the recreation category. Whereas any amounts that are allocated into the three core funds, they must be used for only that purpose. Having said that, if you can see in the amount just above the dark highlight, that's actually our fund balances at the end of, or I should say the beginning of fiscal 22. And I should say at the end of fiscal 21. That number is 724,000 roughly. That was the available reserve, if you will. And we add to that the expected new revenue of 652,000. It gave us a total of 1,376,000 that we were able to allocate if needed. I'm sorry for all the numbers. Are there any questions on how we arrived at that and how we're going forward? If not, I will then bring you to the articles that the CPC asked to bring forward to the voters this year. And that would be referring to the memo that you got. The first one on the memo is in the historic preservation category. It is for $203,780, which is the next debt service payment associated with the purchase of the White Cliffs property. It's Article 27 in the town meeting warrant. This would all come from new revenue, which is the way that we pitched it to the voters at the time in 2016, would be that the White Cliffs purchase was affordable by using new CPA revenue each year. There's no other real detail in that warrant article other than it's a required amount that we must get approval on to continue with the bond payment. The next item on the memo is going to be Article 24 in the warrant. And this is $20,000 for restorations at the Historical Society building at 52 Main Street. Many of you may be familiar with it. Terrific resource in town. And we have approved projects for that building previously through the CPC. And therefore it got unanimous approval here as well. This will be funded through an amount from the historic reserve account, which has over 20,000 in it, and therefore it will not need any new revenue. The next item in your memo is from the open space and recreation category. It'll be Article 23. This is really the highlight of the articles this year for the CPA. It's $290,250 for the pickleball construction of courts at the Ellsworth McAfee Park. I don't play pickleball, but it seems like it's one of the most popular things in town. We hear that there's a demand for any space inside courts and so on to play. It's very popular among all ages. We had a recent survey in town for open space and recreation items, and it was one of the most popular items that came back through the survey and in the open forums that were held by the Open Space Committee. So we feel like it's a very good use of the CPA, and that money would come from new revenue if approved by the voters. The next item on your memo is also in the open space category. It's going to be Article 25. And the article will be to designate $400,000 from the unreserved fund balance into the conservation fund. This is a mechanism that's been used many times previously by the town to take money from the CPA funds, put it in the conservation fund, where it can be used as properties come up that can be acquired or can be preserved by conservation restriction. It's been very effective at adding to our town stock of open space and reducing development, adding to our recreational resources such as trails and so on. And most recently, in the last year, we acquired a large parcel up on Howard Street. That took more than half of what was in the conservation fund previously. So the open space advocated for and the CPC agreed that we would ask for another 400,000 to be transferred, if you will, into the conservation fund. Here again, it's already in the unreserved fund balances of the CPA, and so it will not need any new revenue. The next item in your memo is in the affordable housing category. It will be Article 26, and it's for 65,200, which is the minimum 10% that we will allocate to housing for this year, and it will simply be put in the affordable housing reserve. Most of our projects for affordable housing in the last few years have gone for projects run by the Northborough Affordable Housing Corporation. Many successful projects recently that you've heard about and we'll highlight again at town meeting, including the one where the 2 buildings on Main Street were turned into 4 affordable housing apartments. There are active projects going on that will probably come to 4. There's a balance of monies from previous town meetings, which are controlled by the town, but drawn from as needed by the NAHC. In this case, this money will go into the affordable housing reserve. So should it be needed for a future affordable housing project, it will be moved there again by the voters. Finally, the last item on your memo is the administrative funds article. It'll be Article 28. And each year we are allowed to allocate up to 5% of the expected revenues toward the administrative account, which we've used historically for things such as appraisals on properties that might eventually become another project, other legal fees and things like that. Any monies that are not used in the current year go into the unreserved fund balance. So we typically ask for the full 5% to give us flexibility during the current year. That concludes my presentation on the articles we have this year. There will be 6 of them. And we feel like well within the reserves and the new revenue of the CPA in Northborough.
Have any questions or comments from any committee members? Yes, Tony.
Yes, with the addition of 400,000, how much will that amount to in the conservation fund for future open space acquisition?
I believe it will bring it to a number between 700 and 800,000. I apologize for not being equipped with the current balance.
I've got the balance, John. Right now, there's $280,646 in the conservation fund that is specifically from the CPA. So therefore, we call it restricted money because it has to go with the conservation restriction, whatever the project is. And then we have a small balance of an additional $55,206 that is not restricted. That is money from many town meetings ago before we had CPA, when the voters would occasionally, the Conservation Commission would go to town meeting and ask for $10,000, $15,000, to put towards open space acquisition.
It's primarily interest earnings that are retained by the account. That's where that money that can be used on anything in that account generally comes from at this point.
So that would bring the balance a little over 700,000.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Bob.
So if I may, just for the committee's reference, so the Financial Planning Committee has reviewed the projects that would qualify under the capital plan. The 2 projects that they have looked at, obviously, is the White Cliffs debt service and the pickleball project, which you have had a full presentation on by Scott Charpentier, the DPW director. So Financial Planning Committee has unanimously recommended approval of both those articles. The balance of the other ones don't qualify for as capital projects. $20,000 project doesn't meet the $25,000 threshold, and the rest of these are setting reserves aside primarily, and so that's the only reason why the Financial Planning Committee didn't take a position on those. But the two that would fall under their jurisdiction for recommendation, they have unanimously recommended approval.
Do you have any other comments? Okay, seeing none, I thank John for his presentation, and it's been a worthwhile cause. I know our taxes are going to it, but everything that's been done so far, it's shown to be a very good program. So thank you, John.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Chairman.
So next up, unless I have anything else from John Kadir, will be our economic development update, and that'll be given to us by Kathy Jubert, our town financial planner.
Or town planner. You don't want to put finances. You don't want to put finances with me, Rick. So I put together the memo, which we do on a yearly basis, myself and Bob Frederico. And I know you have, it looks like a pretty busy agenda tonight. I don't know if would you like me to go through each one of the projects, and then if you have any questions on it, or have you seen the memo, and do you just want to ask me questions? Whatever your preference is.
Well, I know I was looking at the memo, and I thought our town was pretty well built out and things are quieting down, but it looks like there's quite an aggressive thing going on here.
It's
Are there any highlights?
it really is a and I know people, myself included, we come before the Appropriations Committee and talk about how busy we are, and and every year how busy we are. But it's been incredible during this COVID period. There has been no slowdown as far as building, whether it's residential, commercial, or industrial. I know Bob Frederico said recently at a staff meeting that the amount of permits that they have issued in the past 6 months surpassed what they had issued in the past 12 months, prior 12 months. So it's just, it really is nonstop. I mean, it's pretty incredible to see. But then on the other hand, you do look around town and you look at, where are people finding this available land? because I agree with you, Rick. We are a pretty much built out community. Right. People tend to think of, when you talk about build out, that they think of a lot of density, no green space, you sort of just, you have a city in mind. But there's still, some industrial land yet left. What you see in the commercial properties mostly is turnover. So, whether the building has sold and there are new tenants coming in, or just, the sort of the regular normal cycle of tenants coming and going. And then again, we continue to see residential development. We're certainly not seeing, subdivisions like we saw, in the 80s and early 90s, but there's still a lot of, 2 or 3 lots left that people are, or putting together 2 or 3 lots, and then putting in a common driveway. So there's still quite a bit of residential development going on. I'll just hit some highlights that either have been in the news lately, or that I think might be of interest to people. But under construction right now, and I'm going to start with the first one, but I won't go through every single one. But under construction right now, or about to be under construction, is the indoor-outdoor soccer facility on Cedar Hill Street. And I can't believe the number of calls. I tend to think they're probably more salesmen that are trying to get their product over there, whether it's the turf or the lights or, but that development has generated a lot of calls to the departments. So they're putting in 2 synthetic fields. One will be outside, one will be inside. And that's, you know, a very nice project. Very self-contained. It's not like an in sports or a teamworks, where you know, people have to belong to this particular football club, as it's called, the New England Football Club, and they will be offering. It's a training facility, so it's not that they're going to be like running tournaments, you know, for 5 towns, and that we're going to end up with traffic issues. But there was a lot of discussion about traffic, which is obviously a hot topic right now. I've gotten a lot of calls from people when they obviously start to see some trees being cleared. So up on Goddard Road, right before St. Cobain, right on the corner of Goddard and Solomon Pond, that is a contractor's yard, an existing facility that's over in Berlin. Some of the Wheelers, I think some people are familiar with the Wheeler family, but some of the Wheelers own that business, and they are relocating from Berlin to Northborough. We also have, speaking of where some trees are being taken down, the old Del Greco site. That is, you know, they're doing their site preparation there. That is going to be 2 buildings, which are going to be used for the purposes of contractors. They will be able to lease or rent space from the property owner. What we're seeing again with this continued growth and continued development in town is that a lot of people that were operating out of their house, you know, whether it's a painter or, you know, whatever the trade is, but you know, the business has grown such that, you know, they now have multiple trucks. They have, you know, pieces of equipment that they need to get out of their own garage, and, you know, don't want it in the backyard, and, you know, so they need a space, basically for their equipment and to, you know, run their company out of. We also have, oh, this is just a little interesting tidbit. I mean, it's great for the company and great for us that they're staying in town, but 56 Hudson Street, which is the Maytech building, right on Hudson Street across from Peppers. A lot of people just comment on just, you know, the place where the big blue wall is. Well, the big blue wall is coming down. So a lot of people are happy about that. So I just wanted to mention that. They're doing some renovations there where they're going to demolish part of the building, including the blue wall, and rebuild basically on the same footprint. Then we also, let's see, I think people are very familiar with what's, you know, the building that's happening on Bartlett Street. If you have any specific questions about that, you know, please ask me. And then we've got, as far as some residential development, again, it's, you know, it's a house here, you know, a couple of houses there. But we have one of the questions, and again, it's one house, but it's a property that's prominent. We get questions about it all the time. It's right on the corner of Hudson Street and Solomon Pond Road. Big old vacant building. It's a white house, and on the left-hand side, as you head, you know, up to, say, the senior center or, you know, St. Cobain. So that was permitted to become a duplex, to get remodeled and become a duplex, but the property owner let the permits expire, and we now hear that there's a lot of interest in people purchasing that site, taking down the existing building, which, you know, has not been taken care of and probably needs to be demolished. And then most likely, again, a duplex was approved, and so I'm anticipating that someone would build a duplex there. One of the projects that's starting to move along that was approved a couple of years, or at least a couple of years ago, on King Street, it is there's an assisted living facility that was right next to the former DeWolf's auto, you know, auto repair, auto salvage, so there is a developer who received his approvals to put in an assisted living facility there. And he's been working diligently with the town and the state to do some reconstruction of King Street also, so that it's going to come out at a better angle at the near right across from 50 Southwest Cutoff. So that is, and then just a couple of little tidbits, because people are, again, sort of are always asking about, well, who's moving in there? What's happening there? We have at the former location of the Texas Barbecue, there is a gentleman that is working. I don't believe that he's open yet, but he is going to be running his business out of a food truck in the parking lot, but actually using the kitchen at that site. And that's going to be called Yogi on Hoagies, I think is what it is. Mama's Pizzeria has recently closed, well, closed a little bit ago. People, I think, are aware of that. There is an applicant that's working his way through the permitting process, and that's going to be a Middle Eastern establishment called Fatouche Grill. We have a new workout place coming to town. As you know, we've got lots of pizza places and workout places. So it's called Hot Works, and that's going to be actually right across from Texas Barbecue in the complex that has Tavern on the Square, which has closed. And again, I don't know the name of the new business, but there's another type of pub type restaurant that's looking to fill that space too. So spaces don't take that long to refill once somebody does leave. But anyways, if anyone has any specific questions, or if I didn't hit on a project you're wondering about, or please let me know.
Any questions from the committee? Seeing none, John, do you have any follow-up?
Nope. Very comprehensive memo with a lot of good information. Thank you, Kathy.
Oh, my pleasure.
Thank you, Kathy, and it's
Okay.
good to see
Thank you.
you.
Have a good night.
All right, next on our agenda will be the Solid Waste and Enterprise Fund, which I believe Scott Carpentier will be speaking to us.
Yes.
Scott, over to you. Are you ready, Scott?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having me. I'll be going over the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund budget for FY22. The Solid Waste Enterprise Fund is partially funded by a pay-as-you-throw program where we charge bag fees. We estimate our revenue projections every fiscal year. We're carrying the same revenue projection for FY22 that we carried in FY21. That is $488,000. We're also carrying the same general fund subsidy that we had in FY21 of $337,160. The overall budget for the Solid Waste Enterprise Fund is going up a little over 5%, $45,594. We're in the third year of our collection contract with our collection contractor, Republic Services. The contract has two one-year options for renewal at the town's discretion. So the third year is FY22 is what we're talking about. Part of our contract includes what's referred to as a peg rate. We spoke last year about the volatility in the recycling market. And when we bid out our contract, we have a provision in it that identifies what the peg rate is, which is the amount we get charged for processing recycling materials. That number varies from year to year. We lock it in contractually in our contract based on the first 7 months of the prior fiscal year. So that means July through January, of FY '21 establishes the PEG rate for FY '22. So last year in FY '21, our PEG rate went up from the original contract to a little over $75. It was $75.25 to dispose of 1 ton of recycling material. In comparison, last year we paid $70 a ton to get rid of trash. It was $5 more to recycle every ton than it is to throw it away. This year, based again on those 7 months, our PEG rate for FY '22 is going down. Our new PEG rate is $60.67. That's a substantial reduction in recycling costs. It's well under what we pay for trash. We're proposing a $72 a ton solid waste disposal cost, but the recycling is going down to a little over $60. That's primarily due to the marketability of our materials and also some industry changes in the marketplace. Some of the industry changes are due to the pandemic. There's much less paper products coming out of stores, restaurants, manufacturing on the commercial side. So the market for paper goods, quality paper goods like cardboard and uncoated papers, the market for that has gone up. So the product is more valuable, hence we have to pay less to dispose of it. Also, equally as important is the quality of our product. It's important that our residents understand what can and cannot be recycled. The better our recycled material is at the MRF, which is the material processing facilities, the better the material is, the less manual labor it takes to separate it, and the more marketable it is and the lower the cost. So for example, our residents not putting plastic bags, the shopping bags, into the recycling stream helps our rates stay down and low for the PEG rates. Those plastic bags, any bags or strings or things like that, they get wound up in the rotating equipment in the processing process. So it's problematic at the facilities. So our quality of recycling, as well as the market changes, has resulted in the PEG rate reduction. That is not just for Northborough. That's kind of seen industry-wide. All communities are generally paying more for trash, for solid waste than trash. This is the first year we've reversed that, which is nice to see. There are a couple other budget increases I want to talk about. One is our contractual increases for collection. So again, we pay Republic Services to collect solid waste and recycling. Part of our contract includes an annual escalation of 3%. That's reflected in the proposed budget. And there are 2 other increases. Okay, here we go. There are 2 other increases to talk about. First, both of the other increases you'll see under the unclassified, where it's going up $30,000 from $137,350 to $167,350. Those 2 increases, one is due to additional bag purchases. The cost of our bags that we purchase and then sell has gone up a little bit, and we have to adjust that price up $10,000. The other unclassified piece, which was a $20,000 increase, is specifically related to yard waste. So when the pandemic hit, we stopped our brush days. We started accepting brush during normal business hours at the highway garage, and we've always accepted leaves and grass. Every year, twice a year, we have to have that area cleared out of that debris. We also have other materials cleared out, like catch basin cleaning, street sweepings, logs, some tailings from excavations. Those things, the sweepings, the catch basin cleanings, the logs and the tailings, that comes out of the general fund, out of the DPW highway operating budget. But the leaves and yard waste comes specifically out of solid waste. And you'll see it under the unclassified itemization listed as disposal of yard waste. That's been increased from $70,000 to $90,000 this year. We've been tracking that over the past 5 or 6 years since I came to Northborough. The cost has been increasing. The last 2 years, that item was over $90,000 each of the last 2 years. So we have an opportunity here to accurately reflect on some quality data and propose the budget increase of $20,000. We're continuing to accept brush and leaves for the foreseeable future. We ask the residents to bring them by between 8 and 2 on normal business hours. And it's for residential use only. It's for the residents only as well. We don't allow contractors, landscapers. If you hire a landscaper to clear your yard, he's not allowed to dump brush or leaves at the highway garage. And we do reserve the right to request some proof of residency, generally just the car registration. But it's been very popular among the residents. It helps us keeping the brush as accepted during normal business hours, because what we were seeing previously was brush was ending up in the leaf pile. And when the brush is in the leaf pile, we have to hire people to physically remove it by hand before the leaves can be shipped out for processing. Otherwise, we have to pay the brush amount, the brush price for processing. So we changed some of the operations at the garage relevant to disposal of yard waste. We're accurately reflecting what those costs are in this proposed budget. All the other changes in the budget are just contractual. So again, the proposed budget for FY22 is $919,144. It's an increase of a little over $45,000 attributed to the 3% contractual increase for collection. And the two items I just talked about, buying trash bags and yard waste processing. So our goal and objective going forward is to stick with our collection contractor, renew the contract for another year. We monitor our fund balance. This is an enterprise fund, just like the water and sewer departments are. It's important to have a solid fund balance somewhere in the 10 to 20% of your operating budget range. That's the goal and objective. Our budget is a little over $900,000. So our goal is to keep over $100,000 in the fund balance, and that's approximately where we are. There's not a lot of volatility in solid waste. There's a lot of volatility in water and sewer, depending on usage and droughts. Not really in solid waste, so you can be on the lower side of those percentage recommendations. So yeah, that's the solid waste enterprise fund budget summarized. You can see that the graph we have before you, the line graph, shows that we've been pretty steady when it comes to the tonnage of solid waste as well as recycling. We're generally in the 1,000 to 1,200 tons a year range for both of those items. And it's been pretty steady. Once the single stream came along, it has stabilized. So it's a successful program. A lot of communities go through the pay as you throw. All of them have a subsidy that comes out of the general fund. I don't know of any that is self-supporting. And the general fund subsidy generally varies in percentages. So we're on par with our peers, and it's a stable fund right now. Do you have any questions, or John, do you have anything to add?
You see any need for increasing the price of the bags?
I don't right now. When we advertised 2 years ago, solicited bids for collection, we did an analysis on a comp study for our peers and bag prices. And then two years ago, we were on the high range. We were in the top third as far as bag prices go, but we were in the bottom third when it comes to percentage of operating budgets supported by the general fund. So as those two numbers get closer to each other, and we come down the middle, we could probably consider things like that. But at this point, no.
Tony, did you have something? Yes.
Sure, a few questions. Scott, you mentioned the PEG rate. What is that rate?
The rate is the amount that the recycling facility, the MRF, charges. In our case, it's Casella. Charges Republic to accept their recycled materials. So Republic has a contract with the MRF, in this case, Casella. They pay a certain PEG rate. They pass that cost directly on to us. So the quality of Republic's recycling doesn't bear only on Northborough's quality. It's across their customer base in the Worcester area. So their customers have been providing them higher quality recycling, just like Northborough has. So they have a very competitive PEG rate. There was
So,
an article recently in the Milford Times, the Milford Daily News, that identified a couple of the other PEG rates that some communities are paying.
if,
Milford.
what is a PEG rate?
Oh, it's like a tipping fee. You know, you pay $70 a ton at a landfill or at a incinerator to deliver trash, solid waste. At a recycling facility, you pay, in our case, it's going to be $60.67 a ton to deliver the recycling. It's like a tipping fee.
All right. So I understand that this rate, whatever it stands for, PEG, perhaps, it has gone down from 75 to 61 per ton. So,
Correct.
yeah. So against this background, why is there a 5% increase in the solid waste budget?
Well, there's a 3% increase in our collection contract. So our collection contract for trash went from 265 to 273 this year, 3% increase. The cost to collect recycling also went up 3%, but the PEG rate went down. So had the PEG rate stayed the same, that $16,000 delta in the PEG rate would have been seen in that increase under the 52,910 line item, trash collection.
If I may, when it comes to trash and recycling, you have to separate it into two pieces. There's the collection piece, which is escalating to pick up the trash and pick up the recycling. And then you have the disposal. The tipping fee is what it's referred to for the incineration of the trash, and the PEG rate for the disposal and processing of the recycling. So of those, if you say four variables, you know, the transportation and pickup for the recycling and the trash, those are going up. The tipping fee is going up to get rid of the trash, and the recycling fee is the one that is coming down. So there's multiple variables that are in play.
So the tipping fee
It's for the trash.
For the trash. And that is going up by some percentage?
Through the consumer price index is built into the contract, that it goes up by the consumer price index. Yep.
So that would be something like 2 to 3%?
Yes.
Yep.
So where does the 5% come from?
Well, we have $30,000 increase under unclassified. That's the largest one line increase. It's an 18.5% increase on that one line.
Oh,
That's the leaves and the trash that we were just talking about, Tony.
the leaves and trash. Okay,
That's
Yeah.
the one that, you know, that's the biggest increase.
got it. Thank you.
Yeah. It's the contracts have become very complicated. When everything went crazy, 2018, when China decided that they're getting out of the recycling business, it threw everything through. It was crazy. We were anticipating very significant increases. And if the old structure is that you hire a contractor, they take the trash and they take the recycling and they market the recycling, and whatever they get for it, they get for it. Basically, they deal with the risk. Well, it's a commodities market, and as it gets very volatile, if you're asking them to give you a bid, they're going to give you a very high bid because they're risk adverse, which is why Scott worked and we all worked together to structure this contract where it moves with the commodities market. It's based on the prior 6 or 7 months. And so that rate will move around as the commodities market fluctuates. So that basically the hauler isn't taking on all the risk and the town isn't taking on all the risk. And so in this particular instance, things have settled out a little bit. We've seen that rate come down, a little bit, but it's gonna bounce around. It's everything is much more complicated now because of the recycling market, and again, things like the pandemic impact it. The biggest thing right now is just trying to get rid of glass. Nobody wants glass. If glass isn't being recycled within 200 miles of wherever it's where it's needed, the shipping costs make it's just prohibitively costly. There, some places are crushing it and using it as aggregate in roadway projects. They use it as landfill cover They're just trying to get rid of it. It's cheaper to take virgin materials and create new glass than it is to recycle existing glass. And so right now that's a major drag on the recycling costs. But then as Scott indicated, everybody's home, right? What's the big demand right now? Cardboard boxes, because everything's coming shipped to you, from Amazon, right? So cardboard is actually, that market is doing really well right now. So even within the commodities market for recycling, the individual, cardboard versus clean paper versus plastics versus glass, even those variables within that factor are all over the place. So it's a complicated model, but I think we fared pretty well and been served well by the structure of this contract.
Yeah, we're in a as you move further east, Framingham, Wellesley, further into the metropolitan area, the recycling peg rate or the recycling costs, they exceed $100 a ton. That's they're paying $65, $70 a ton for trash like we are. They're paying over $100 a ton for recycling.
Yeah.
Do I have any other questions from the committee or comments? Hearing none, I guess your job is done, Scott. Thank you for the presentation and I guess fairly good news.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the time of the committee. Have a good evening.
Good evening. Well, next up, we'll be hearing from the Finance Office on undistributed expenses, which would be employee benefits and debt. And I guess Jason Little will be doing this for us.
All right, thanks, Mr. Chair. I believe I was going to start talking about the Finance Department budget, so I'll start there, and if there are no questions, we'll just move on to the undistributed expenses. Happy to report that the Finance Office, which consists of accounting, treasurer collector, and the assessor's office, we're up a total of $288 in our budget over the prior year. So the reason for that is primarily due to the assessor's office, whereby we've been working through a reorganization plan, which has crossed FY21 and FY22, where we replaced the duties of some of the higher paid assessors, Board of Assessors members doing field work with some office staff, and created a new position whereby we have eliminated one of the assessor's assistants positions. So overall, the FTEs are down 0.4%, but generally fairly level in terms of practice. This new position that we've created, again, replaces one position that was already in the office. And the Personnel Board heard about this position last week and has approved it. It's going to be in the town meeting warrant to be heard this year. So again, that's truly the reason behind the low increase in the Finance Office. Again, the only things changing are the contractually obligated wage increases between years. So Accountant's Office, 2%, Treasurer Collector's Office is up under 2%, and the Assessor's Office is down about $9,000. And if you have any questions about the Finance Department, I'm happy to conclude or answer any questions you have.
Any questions or comments from the committee? Just speak up. I can't. Okay, everyone's on the screen. Seeing none. John has nothing. Jason, you can move on to the next segment.
All right, so I'm sorry, did somebody say something, or is my speaker feeding back? I thought I heard.
No, someone probably just coughed.
Oh, okay. Okay, so the next thing to call your attention to is the undistributed expenses. I don't know if you folks had a chance to look through the budget submission that was forwarded to you as part of the packet. But again, the undistributed expenses, there's a lot of different expenses that are included in the undistributed category. Health insurance, OPEB, life insurance, other employee benefits, the Worcester County retirement, workers' comp, our building liability insurance, debt service, state assessments, overlay. Good, thanks, John. This is the data I was looking at. Reserve for abatements or offsets, stabilization fund contributions, the reserve fund, and any other warrant articles. So this whole section comprises a lot of information. So primarily, I'm sure you've heard this from John before, but we secured a very favorable renewal in our Fallon renewal for this year, which was 0%. So that led to us only having a 2.1% increase in the health insurance budget for this year. And again, notwithstanding the news that we've recently heard about Fallon, but that is in an ordinary year would be great news that we secured a 0% rate increase for our HMO active plans. We again are not transferring any money to OPEB. We have transferred considerable money in prior years, and as this liability grows, we'll be recalculating it again at the end of the year. It's about $36 million is our unfunded OPEB liability. So it will be important to get back on track with our OPEB contributions in future years. But in the midst of a pandemic, we felt like that was maybe not a wise thing to do in this climate. Our Worcester Regional Retirement Assessment, that's up approximately 8.6%. That is on a funding plan. That's so that the regional retirement system, which there's approximately 100 members in the Worcester Regional Retirement System, and they have developed a funding plan to be fully funded by 2040. That's the law. They are trying to be a little more aggressive and be fully funded by 2036. So they have adopted a funding plan whereby the overall assessments to communities are not going to increase more than 10%. So individual results vary. So this year, prior years, we've had 11% increases. And again, this is really to get to fully funding the pension system. And so, again, sizable increase, but not unpredictable. And then lastly, debt service. Our debt service budget is down as we pay off debt. We have a fairly low debt load currently, whereby I think if we add our overlapping debt under our debt policies, our individual debt policies of the town, we're at about 4.2%, of debt as a percentage of the overall budget. If you take out the overlapping debt, we're at around 3%. It's a very low debt amount, where our debt policy that we've adopted for the town is somewhere around, we won't exceed 15%. So as you can, tell, we're well below that. As time goes on, we work with a financial advisor that surveys the tax exempt debt market and will bring to us opportunities to refinance older debt if market conditions warrant that. And they've just recently come to us with the opportunity to potentially refinance 2 of our existing 11 issues that we have of outstanding long-term debt. Which is good news. I mean, we will likely be able to refinance some debt that we bonded at about 3% when our credit rating was lower. We've got the highest credit rating that we've ever had, starting I think in 2015. We moved up to AA1, and we'll likely get an interest rate 1% or less in our new long-term debt if we refund this debt that's in the neighborhood of 3%. So all told, the benefit of that would be we'd save about over the life of the remaining 8 years of this debt about $650,000 over those 8 years. So I don't have a lot more to share. I don't know if I missed anything. If you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Yes, Tony. You're muted, Tony.
Sorry. Thank you. This is so this is a very cheerful picture here. The undistributed expenses going substantially down. Warrant articles, I just would like to understand what that warrant articles line in the means.
Through the chair, Tony, if you scroll through your packet, I know you guys got a huge packet. And so
Yep.
if you go through the sections a little further down, you can see all the detail of what the warrant articles are. Basically, what that is our free cash capital for the most part. That's what the majority of those articles are.
It's the capital budget articles, Tony.
Got it. Okay.
So it's a little artificial in those accounts in that that those numbers bounce around a lot. The goal here, though, as always, we want to be transparent and thorough. So we want, if you pick up the budget, we want people to be able to find everything that we're spending. Although it's not, depending on what you spend on the capital items last year versus this year, can bounce that bottom line number around. The top section of the top section there in this chart or this table up here, these are real regular budget numbers. Some of these others, like reserves for abatements, or if you look down here, the reserve fund, that's one that we increased, remember, at town meeting last year to 375, but from postponing some capital projects because we weren't sure what the impact of COVID was going to be, and that's down to 175. So this bottom line number or change here isn't, I don't say it isn't relevant, but it's heavily bounced around by these one-time warrant articles. And again, the idea is so that if you're looking at our budget, we want you to see everything that we're spending out of every bucket of money. And in this case, that's free cash. So it doesn't really impact it doesn't have any additional tax impact at that point, the warrant articles.
Good, thank you.
Okay. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Again, sometimes, a lot of towns, they don't show this stuff, but we feel like we want everybody to, if you pick up the budget, we want you to find anything that's in the town meeting warrant. It needs to have a home in the budget and understand how it relates. But one-time capital projects paid with one-time revenues that aren't related to the tax base, that bounces around year to year, and it moves that bottom line number around quite a bit. And the other thing too is, the numbers down, the numbers are down because you're not putting, we're not putting any money in stabilization either, right? We're not putting money into OPEB, and we're not putting money into stabilization. That's $700,000 right there. So the good news on stabilization is, through the pandemic, we didn't have to draw from our savings account, but we're also not in a position to add to it. So it's fine. The good news is the budgets have grown so small over the last couple of years, 1% increase last year, very reasonable, 3% increase this year. It means that on a ratio basis, your reserves are still healthy. One of the reasons why you have to keep putting money into your savings account is as your budget grows, whatever's in your savings account becomes a smaller percentage, right, on a relative basis. But if your budget isn't growing, then that savings account on a relative basis stays pretty strong. And right now we're around 8 or 9% in reserves, which is a perfect place where we want to be right now.
Have any questions or comments from the committee? John, any
Yeah,
follow?
if I may, just again, I just want to draw your attention to the fact that the health insurance has come in again very reasonably, and that's based on moves that we've made working with the employees. In the past, we've done plan design changes, most recently carrier consolidation. So we got a 0% premium increase in 2022. We do have a few more employees coming on to into our insurance. So that still has a small budget increase that you see there, but over in excess of in the last decade, our health insurance budget on average has gone up 3%, 3.03%. Again, you heard me say this in the budget presentation on March 22nd with the Board of Selectmen. It has taken a tremendous amount of work on the part of the administration and the employees to work together when when health insurance comes in at a 10% increase. You know, a 10% increase on a 6.1 or a $6.2 million account, it swamps everything. And so the fact that we've been able to keep that reasonable has really been one of the major keys to our success, because otherwise health insurance is probably our #1 budget driver overall. So again, very successful there. The other thing is our debt, our level of indebtedness has continued to go down. We are well positioned to take on the next large building project, which would be the fire station project. So it's just incredible. We are at the bottom, we are below the floor to the range where of debt that we should, be maintaining. So we actually are, it's time to take on that next big project. And so we hope that this committee and the voters will see it that way as well. So again, 2 success stories based on a very disciplined budgeting approach with regard to the level of debt and what you use your debt for, not for small projects and trucks and things like that. And then again, just having excellent working relationships with all of our bargaining units, that when health insurance becomes a problem, we get together and we've been able to proactively find solutions that have been to the long-term benefit of the town and the taxpayers. So those 2 big budget items that are crushing other communities are not crushing us at the moment. Jason mentioned sort of in passing, we have Fallon. Fallon has just announced yesterday that they're getting out of the commercial market altogether. So what that means is for fiscal 2022, our budget is set and our rate increase is locked in at the 2% budget increase. However, for 2023, that means this calendar year, this fall, we're going to be sitting down with all of our bargaining units and saying, we're going to need to bid out health insurance again. And changing carriers comes with a very high information and communication costs. The last time we did it, we probably spent 4 months just talking to every bargaining unit and literally went employee by employee to see who is your doctor, who are your specialists, are they covered under this new carrier and under this other plan. And until you do that with every single subscriber, people are hesitant to work with you to make those kinds of changes. So we're not going to have a choice in this one, guys. We're going to have to bid health insurance out again. It'll be Tufts / Harvard Pilgrim, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and maybe there's another carrier out there. What we don't know is, are the carriers going to be hungry and try to gobble up market share and give very good proposals? Or is there going to be so much new business out there that they're not going to feel that they need to be competitive? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how that's going to play out. I hope that they're all going to want to see it as a chance to grab significant market share and they're going to be real competitive, but it remains to be seen. So if they're not competitive and those numbers come in ugly, 2023 is going to be a difficult budget year for us. So, but again, that's a year cycle off. But again, we'll be planning for that year cycle and starting to have those conversations in a matter of a few months with our employees. So it takes a long time to find real structural savings in a budget and not just slash and burn and cut people's travel and training, which we've already done. To find a fundamental change in your budget, it takes time, and it usually takes a lot of cooperation and collaboration. We can't do it without the school department and the teachers and public safety, police, fire, and everybody. But we've got a 12-year history of successfully doing that. So I don't relish it, but I'm confident we'll find a solution when the time comes. So.
Hey, any other comments, questions? Seeing none, Jason, thank you for your time, and we can dismiss you for this portion. Glad to see you at this meeting and several of the past ones. A lot of work on you.
Well, thanks for saying that, and thanks for having me here. Thanks for reviewing everything so carefully.
Well, I guess our last and final article for this evening will be the review of the annual town meeting warrant articles and to vote on the committee's recommendations. Our committee votes on all financial articles, and as in the past, our warrant has been nicely divided into 3 basic sections. The first section on this warrant encompasses Articles 4 through 10. This is the operating budget, which our committee has met with all the department heads and gone over their budgets in the past already. The second section would be Articles 11 through 19. This is our capital budget. And again, we've met with all these department heads and spoken with them in the past. The very last section is the Community Preservation Act, which we have heard from tonight. And that is Articles 23 to 28. Unless I hear differently from any of our members, we'll take these one at a time and vote on them. Do I have any suggestions or from the members?
If I may, just through the chair,
John.
one piece of information, again, as you know, the Financial Planning Committee is the primary committee tasked with reviewing the capital improvement plan and the capital budget. They have completed their work and they have unanimously recommended approval of Articles 11 through 19 as part of the town's 6-year capital improvement plan. The first year, fiscal 2022, being the capital budget, and that encompasses Articles, again, 11 through 19. So that committee feeds into you in terms of they do a much more detailed review of the capital. So they've recommended unanimously approval of those. Then hopefully you will add your support, and then ultimately the Board of Selectmen will take the input of the Financial Planning and Appropriations in making their recommendations. So I just wanted to make sure for the record, it was clear that Financial Planning has completed and their report is ready and will be incorporated into the town meeting warrant booklet that we're working on right now.
Okay. So it's up to my committee members. We can go through this article by article, or if you'd like to compress these, join them in any way, I'd be open to suggestions. Janice.
I think that in view of all the information that we have received and our combined experience, that we can compress these into like materials, articles, you know, in other words, housekeeping together and community preservation together, capital items together.
All right, that sounds like a good suggestion. Do you have an idea of the first group that you would like to combine as one, into one vote?
Well, let's do the basically the articles for the basic town budget together. Articles 4 through 10.
Okay, so Article 4 would be the town budget. Article 5 is the water, sewer, solid waste enterprise fund budget. Article 6 is the Northborough K through 8 school budget. Article 7 is the ARHS budget. Article 8 is the Ascot Valley Regional Vocational High School budget. Article 9 is revolving funds authorization and expenditure limits. And Article 10 is the Appropriations Committee Reserve Fund. So it has been suggested that we combine these articles into one
Motion.
Someone like to
Combine them
make-
into one motion.
Well, in one motion, I'm sorry.
Sure.
Would someone like to make a motion on that?
I move we vote to recommend approval of the following articles to the town meeting as presented. Article 4, the town budget. Article 5, water, sewer, and solid waste enterprise fund budgets. Article 6, Northborough K through 8 school budget. Article 7, the ARHS school budget. Article 8, the Assabet Valley Regional Vocational High School budget. Article 9, the revolving funds authorization of expenditure limits. And Article 10, the Appropriations Committee Reserve Fund.
Second.
George Brankel made a motion to combine Articles 4 through 10 into one motion for one vote. And Janice Height has seconded that. All in favor, please say aye. Tony. Are you in favor of combining these articles?
We'll call.
Are you going to do a roll call?
That's what I'm doing now, yes. Are you in favor of combining these articles into one vote to cover all the articles from 4 to 10? I'll ask for a roll call vote. Tony,
Yes.
George,
Aye.
and Janice,
Aye.
and myself, aye. So the motion is made and seconded to combine Articles 4 through 10 into one vote, either yay or nay, to approve or disapprove, recommending these to the town. All in favor of recommending a yes vote to recommend approval of these articles to the town, say aye. Tony,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Dennis,
Aye.
and myself, aye. So we have unanimous vote of the Appropriations Committee, recommend approval of Articles 4 through 10 at town meeting. Now we have our second section. If we wish to do the same thing, would be open a motion on that effect.
I move we vote to recommend approval of the following FY 2022 capital budget articles to town meeting as presented. Article 11, police cruiser replacements. Article 12, fire department car and 3 pickup trucks replacement.
It's,
Article
I'm sorry, if I may just, it's car three is the designation, which is a
Okay.
pickup truck.
Car 3.
Yeah.
Pickup truck replacement. Where am I?
13.
13. Fire department car 1 SUV replacement. Article 14, DPW funding for road improvements and maintenance. Article 15, DPW 1-ton pickup truck with plow replacement. Article 17, DP 16. I think I did
You
that.
do 15, okay.
Yeah. Article 17, DPW water and sewer SCADA system. Article 18, DPW water enterprises fund reservoir dam compliance. Article 19, DPW water and sewer utility tractor replacement.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, just from a procedural standpoint, if the motion is made and seconded, then the committee can just vote on that motion as a clean vote. That would suffice.
All right.
I second.
Okay, Janice Height has made a motion to combine Articles 11 to Article 19, which comprises capital budget articles. And George Branco has seconded that motion. We will now take a vote to approve Articles 11 through 19. A yay vote, a yes vote, we'll present these to town meeting and as an approval for these articles, and a no vote will be a rejection. So I will take all in favor of presenting these Articles 11 to Article 19 as a yes vote, and to present them for consideration to town meeting to be approved. Please say aye. Anthony,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Janice,
Aye.
and myself, aye. The motion passes unanimously. Articles 11 through 14 approved by the Appropriations Committee to present to the town or sent to the town as a I'm stuck, John.
Basically, the committee's voted to recommend approval of these articles.
Recommend approval. All right. And our final section we heard from tonight, which was the Community Preservation Acts. Those encompass Articles 23 through 28. Do we have any comments or recommendations on those?
Mr. Chairman, I move we vote to recommend approval of the Community Preservation Act articles to town meeting as presented. Article 23, pickleball courts at Ellsworth McAfee Park. Article 24, exterior painting of the Historical Society building at 52 Main Street. Article 25, Community Preservation Fund transfer to the Conservation Fund. Article 26, Community Preservation Fund transfer to the Affordable Housing Reserve Fund. Article 27, payment of the White Cliffs debt service. And Article 28, authorization of Community Preservation Fund administration expenses.
Second,
All right, Anthony Petit has recommended and made a motion that we combine Articles 23 through 24, which encompasses the Community Preservation Act, into one vote, which will give our recommendation to the town meeting for approval. Janice Height seconded that motion. I'll take a roll call vote for recommendation of all these articles into one. At the town meeting as a recommendation for approval. Tony, please give me an aye vote or a nay vote. Tony,
Aye.
Wedge,
Aye.
Janice,
aye.
myself, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Articles 23 to 28 have been approved by the Appropriations Committee and will be sent to the town meeting as a recommendation for approval. That completes our section. If anyone else, I do have one more recommendation. If anyone else would like to make any comments first.
No, we should speak about the committee's report before we dissolve this evening, so when appropriate.
But I had one suggestion, since we are the finance, work with the finances of the town and make recommendations. We have Article 38. Property tax exemption for Gold Star parents. Now, this will involve, if passed, a tax increase for every other family in town. I think my own experiences, I'm a veteran and I served during Vietnam. I don't see where this article helps the veterans in any way. And I think it is poorly written. Nothing stated in here. If a service, it doesn't help the servicemen in any way, nor does it help the serviceman's spouse. It's just giving free money to the family, and it opens the door for some abuse in the future. Not we're saying there'd be any now, but a family could get this, living in a modest home now. They're totally tax-free. They can move to a much more expensive home because now they're not paying taxes. If we pass this, families from out of town that have been in the state can move into our town and take advantage of this, which will increase the taxes on every other taxpayer and give incentives. Although we feel sorry for the family, they did lose a son or a daughter. It has nothing to do with the veterans themselves and help them. And I can't support this article myself, but I'd like to hear any other comments from the committee on this. Janice.
We have received or about to receive a piece of money from the federal government, which to be sure is not magnificent, but nevertheless is more than we've ever gotten before. And we can't categorically support special interest groups. I have no objection in giving money to veterans and their widows, but I just don't think that kind of money is around right now.
I was researching another project which I had discussed and been talking about for a couple of years on trying to give a tax freeze to senior citizens and that. And in looking at it, there are 14 other states that do freeze the property tax for seniors. Connecticut used to do it, and Connecticut also made the reparations to the town for it, but they found that to be too expensive. And the one state that doesn't do it is Massachusetts, because they found out that that's against the Constitution of our state. We cannot give funds or special dispensation to single people or single groups. It has to be across the board to everyone. And if I were even thinking of approving this, it would at least have to go to all first responders that lose their life in the line of duty. It's police and fire are no different than our servicemen. And this doesn't compensate any servicemen. It doesn't do anything for them, doesn't do anything for their wives. It's just giving free money out that we can't afford, that everyone else has to end up paying for in the long run. Yes, Tony.
Sure, just a technical question. I mean, this is an article that does speak to town finances. And so I'm assuming that the Appropriations Committee is called upon to make a recommendation on it. Is that the case?
I would
Yeah.
assume so, John.
If I may, so just so everybody's clear about what we're talking about here, this is the Gold Star Family Act. This is Rick was talking about a lot of different things there, but the bottom line is we can only provide tax exemptions or breaks to folks that we have the legal authority to do that, and that's all spelled out in Mass General Law. So this is a statute that was passed in the legislature. There's no funding associated with it. Right now, under the law, there are tax breaks that the locality can approve to give breaks to a spouse of a deceased service member. So this was a new act that would require local adoption. So this was coming in as a citizen's petition. The board decided to place it on the warrant rather than force it to come through a citizen's petition. Essentially what it does is it just allows a tax exemption for Gold Star families, which is basically, this is specifically for the parents of who have lost a service member. So it's not necessarily something that's budgeted. You won't see it appear in any line item. It's an abatement, just like there's an abatement or exemption for blind residents, various abatements for service members. So this essentially the way this works, because of the way the legislation structured is, it's an abatement off of the taxes, which then basically everybody else backfills that expense. So anytime we give an exemption that's allowed under the law, it comes off the top of what you collect in taxes, and the balance of the taxpayers make that up. That's the nature of an exemption. So
my question is
technical.
My question is technical. In other words, is the Appropriations Committee called upon to recommend on this budget article?
I think it's within your discretion, given the nature of it. It's an exemption, but it is a monetary impact. So it is a monetary cost to the town. So it would not be, I think this is one of those discretionary areas is how I would leave it. So.
Board would like to just pass over this. I was just making my recommendation. I know, for one, this doesn't help any servicemen that I know of, and I will not be voting for it. I don't know if you want to take a vote as a committee or just leave this up to yourselves at town meeting to vote how you feel.
I move that we pass over this and allow this to be discussed at town meeting and voted on at town meeting. I do not think, as John mentioned, it's at our discretion. This is not something that's related that we have to do in terms of appropriations and in terms of approving the town budget. This is not really a budget item. So I think it's a little bit without our purview and doesn't require a comment from the Appropriations Committee other than our views as citizens of the town of Northborough. So I would move that we be silent on this and allow it to be discussed at town meeting.
Hey, George has made a motion to not make a statement on this as a committee at this time. Do I have a second?
Second.
Janice seconded. It has been made and seconded that we not make a formal vote on this, and we leave that up to our own discretion at town meeting. All in favor? Tony?
Aye.
George?
Aye.
Janice?
Aye.
And myself, aye. The motion has been made, seconded, and passed unanimously that we will not take a recommendation on this, that it will be left up to the individual at town meeting. And that having been said, that brings us to the end of the meeting. And John, did you have anything further?
So the only thing left for the committee to do in this budget cycle, and first of all, thank you for all of your time and energy that went into reviewing a lot of information over the last 4 or 5 months. But the only thing left to do would be to create the committee's report of your votes, and it's less of an editorial and document and more of a physical document, because as you know, town meeting will be once again held outside, so there will be no overhead projection. So we'll need to produce a handout for town meeting with the committee's recommendations. So what I would suggest we do is allow me to work with the chairman to kind of draft up. Again, it's really about the formatting of the document. And then you probably need one more meeting where you would have to approve your report going to town meeting. And so my suggestion would be, although it's not on our schedule, that you meet next Thursday to review the final report, because then we need to incorporate it into, as I said, the overall town meeting warrant packet that's going to be distributed physically at town meeting. If you remember last year, so what's up on the webpage right now, what you received in your packet tonight, that is the official town meeting. That's the official warrant as approved by the Board of Selectmen on March 22nd. What we need to do now is collectively, and your piece of it is your report, is put the full packet together with the motions, the Financial Planning Committee's recommendation report, the Appropriations Committee's recommendation report, and any backup materials like budget presentations and things of that nature. So that's what needs to take place over the next 2 weeks. Your component is your recommendation report. So I think if you met next Thursday to review and approve the report, then that would conclude your work in this particular budget cycle. So I would recommend that. Let me see, what would that be? That would be April 8th, if that works. So that'd be next Thursday.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Janice has made a motion that we have our next meeting will be on April 8th, which will be a Thursday night at 8 o'clock. I'm sorry, at 6 o'clock to go over our recommendations on these warrant articles for town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, will it be 6 or 7 o'clock? 7 o'clock is your normal meeting time.
All right.
We can do it at 6 if you like it, but
No,
just want to make sure that we're all show up at the right time.
Keep it the regular time, 7 o'clock, unless anyone else would like to make it earlier or later. All right, Janice made the motion and George seconded the motion. All in favor? Tony,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Janice,
aye.
myself, aye. Motion has been made, seconded, and passed unanimously that we will hold our next meeting on April 8th. This be an open meeting or a closed meeting, John?
It would be you mean, are you going to take public comment?
Yes.
You can, if you want to take public comment, you can. The purpose of the meeting, you've already taken your votes, though. Again, at the last selectmen's meeting, that was a public hearing to take public comment. I don't think there was anything in that public comment that would change anything that we've done in terms of structure of the budget. So the purpose of the meeting on the 8th would be just to review and approve your final town meeting report.
Yeah, I was just wondering where we took our votes tonight, and the public knows our votes, if this would be more like just an executive meeting to hash things out behind closed doors and set up a formal report.
No, I mean, it would be, it would be an open meeting. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. It wouldn't qualify for an executive session. No, it would be a public meeting, just like you're meeting this evening. And you would just review your report and do it in real time. And if there's any comments or edits, we'll wrap it up. The idea is to get a draft. And again, like I said, it's really just a document codifying the votes that you've taken. And then, certainly the committee can put any editorial comments in there that you would like with regard to the overall budgets or any of the articles. That's clearly within your purview. But no, the idea would be to issue a draft ahead of time, and then you guys just meet, hash out any last things, and finalize the report.
All right. I guess that finishes everything on our agenda. Unless there's anything else to come before the committee, I will entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening.
So moved.
I move we adjourn. Oh, a second.
Okay, Tony made a motion to adjourn the meeting this evening. George seconded the motion. All in favor? Tony,
Aye.
George,
Aye.
Janice,
Aye.
myself, I now declare that this meeting of the